I used to transport dead animals for burning purposes. Pet owners pay a veterinarian to kill their loved one, then they pay a cremation service to pick it up, melt it, and send back the ashes. An evil racket that exploits people's emotions. You could even put your baby's dust in an overpriced necklace. Aw. If you care to listen, I'm gonna tell you the funny and gross stories I accumulated over the 3 years I worked this job. It was depressing work. Although most of the time it felt nice driving through rural Kentucky and Indiana while listening to podcasts, music, and audiobooks, while also getting stoned on the road and recording tons of worthless rambles. The biggest perk was the company used to allow us to drive the work van home without having to pay for our own gas. Once they took that away, more and more corporate changes began to suck the fun out of the already grim gig. It was a really simple task once you get past the horror and the smells. Drive to a clinic, locate their freezer, and bring the bags containing the dead back to your creepy ass van. That's all I did, but in order to get the full picture, I gotta elaborate more on this nefarious business. So, pet owners pay to have their pets' paw prints molded into clay. Since these pets are frozen in odd rigor mortis shapes, the cremator would brutally break legs to get the desired paw prints. Sometimes these paw prints got mixed up. I remember my boss having a meeting about a video going viral. I got stuck on the term viral since cracking 1 million views ain't even going viral anymore. Well, this was viral for this company because when I type in the company's name on YouTube, it's the first video to pop up. Essentially, this poor fella got a paw print and he could tell right off the bat that it was not his cat's paw. It was fucked up. How can you fix that? The body was already cremated. Now, this didn't happen at our facility, though I wish it did because fuck majority of my former co-workers. Besides these special services, there were 2 other types of cremations, communal and privates. Communal cremation, you don't get the ashes back and they get thrown into an oven with multiple bodies. And the company claims to scatter it on a farm. You know, the farm where your parents sent your pets, right? It didn't exist. They threw them in the trash. Privates cost extra since the company claimed the pet gets cooked on their own, but the cremator felt it would take too long, so he would put them in there with other animals as well, just like the communals. All ashes look the same. How are you supposed to know it's your pet? Private cremations get put in an urn and sent back to the owner, whatever those remains may be. I think toward the end of my time, the higher-ups got more strict about private cremation. However, all the cremator did was put a divider in the oven, still mixing those ashes. Another side of my job were home pickups, and I was bad at them. Usually it was a situation where the person was too elderly and feeble to pick up the weight, or it was an unexpected death that happened at their home. Of course, these bodies weren't frozen, so they were extra nasty. I'd show up and spam the same couple of lines like an NPC. Sorry for your loss. Your pet lived a good life. Do you want to keep a body part as a souvenir? My first home pickup, I told the lady to take as much time as she needed. That instantly broke her. She started crying. Why? Why? As she rested her head on the dead dog. Real theatrical. Made me tear up. Then there was this home pickup with a dad and his kids at home. I had to wrap up the dog in a blanket, and the father had the audacity to ask me if I needed help. Like I'm gonna make him do my job while he's grieving. That's that fucking pallbearer logic. I'm glad home pickups were rare. The $50 bonus wasn't worth it. Only other one I can recall was a guy who had a bad back, so he allowed me to bear hug his beloved fat pup out of his house. Now, the most fucked up place I had to take the hearse to was a diagnostics lab. Necropsies were performed here. A necropsy is just a fancy word for autopsy, but for dead animals. Well, I'd pull up and sometimes they'd be using the sealing apparatus to ragdoll a horse out of some bestiality enthusiast's trailer. The poor stallion would float to the back and the gates of hell would shut behind them. When the doors opened back up, I'd peek inside and see demons in dark blue jumpsuits casually mutilating a cow or spraying blood off the floor after the act. My assignment here included one of Satan's minions walking out to me and handing me 2 separate bags, marked 1 of 2 and 2 of 2 like a package contained in 2 different boxes. The reason being they sliced these cadavers in half to check for rabies. One time I had to turn around and go back because they forgot to give me half a dog. Which half, you may ask? I don't know. Wasn't morbidly curious enough to look. Another occasion they butchered a dog into 3 parts. Butchered is the correct word because these bags were usually covered in blood. Alright, let's talk lifting. For being nicknamed the dead guy by clinics, the job still gave me an ego boost. Buttering up came from either cute old ladies or hot vet techs thicker than aquarium glass who would approach me and say, "You're gonna need help getting this big dog out of the freezer." Then I'd go do it myself with ease and the hotties would tell me,
"Wow, you're so strong."
While those adorable old bitches would yell, "You're gonna break your back, young man." Sorta on topic, but once I was like 50% sure this goth babe was flirting with me when she asked,
"So, do you lie about your job when you go on dates?"
Whatever my response was, it was smooth as my brain. She could have easily been making fun of me. Either way, me and my longtime girlfriend laughed about the idea of me trying to present myself on a date. Anyways, recollecting the largest vanquished beast I ever saw, it was an obese mastiff. Felt like a 300-pound beanbag. The vets couldn't fit him in their freezer, so they left him out on a cart. Took me and two wee ladies to lift his limpy ass into the van. I think my PR for lifting and carrying out a dog was 225. My comfortable rep range was around 150. After that, they started feeling heavy. I was weak when I started. I remember struggling to carry out a 90-pounder. The guy training me was confused as to why I didn't use the cart, not realizing why I got into this line of work. Progressive overload. The 90-pounder became light over time. I got to the point where I could carry two out at once, farmer style. Whenever I went to a new clinic, they would always ask, "Where's your cart?" Most people used the gorilla carts. I typically just carried them out. Some clinics were impressed. Others complained I was manhandling the corpses. I totally was when I thought I wasn't being watched. Desensitization, folks. I would never throw an animal carcass for sport, but a bag marked 50 pounds, you bet I'm testing my medicine ball throw. Yeah, I received a few complaints here and there. The first happened when I had a floor of bodies and this vet tech asked me to grab zip ties out of my van. It's what we used to seal the body bags. My training taught me to step on the bodies if I truly had to. On a heavy day, there's 50 plus in there. The most extreme example is when I had to hit clinics we hadn't been to in a week and had 100 plus bodies stacked up like a wartime hill worth of dead. So when the lady who asked me for zip ties saw me doing this, she decided to awkwardly slip into the back of my van. The willing kidnap victim stood on the edge with her phone by her side. I didn't think much of it. Later I found out she was recording me. Duh. Perhaps this fetish content of me stomping on corpses is out there, hopefully buried on Facebook in a group or some shit. Believe me, I wanted to avoid stepping on the dead. I always felt wrong. Oh, but throwing them's okay, I guess, you fucking psycho. Eventually, I figured out how to balance myself to reach stuff off my shelves without being disrespectful. I'm fortunate to be an acrobat with long limbs, but the guy who taught me was fat and short, so I understand his dead dog walking approach. Same dude also taught me it was okay to prop open doors with smaller animals. A real wicked practice. The next complaint came from a woman who bitched at me for slamming animals in the van. In all honesty, I didn't. That time. The corpse tapped the wheel well cover, and it's a big van that hadn't even had shelving installed yet, so the sound echoed. She approached my window and tapped on it. I rolled down my window for Officer Nag, and she berated me for a good few minutes, talking in all kinds of circles. I didn't argue though, took it with a smile and apologized. She happened to be some veterinarian's wife, resulting in my boss getting a call and us laughing about it. Moving on to driving, I got stuck a lot. These vans didn't have four-wheel drive, and I'm an idiot. My first day out on my own, I backed too far out of a parking lot and got stuck on a hill. My boss and a coworker had to come help me push out the van. Another incident, I got stuck in some mud. A vet tech had to call her dad to come help. He arrived and was excited to pull a city boy out with his truck. Other times it was due to snow. I got stuck trying to leave this one clinic. Thankfully the vet was also happy to help pull a city boy out with his truck. The worst occurrence was during a snowstorm. My van couldn't get up this hill leading to a clinic. Almost slid into a ditch. So I chose to turn around and head back home. My dumbass self decided to listen to GPS instead of taking the safe highways, which led me to mountainous back roads. I attempted to backtrack, but the way I came and the way the GPS was telling me to go were both hills my van couldn't climb, leaving me trapped until a good Samaritan with a truck showed up, once again to help a city slicker out. He towed me up that mountain, and at the end of it I'd said something queer to him like, "I'll never forget this." He just nodded and went to help the other fools. Yeah, getting lost was an issue too. You see, I was heading to this new client out in the middle of nowhere who operated a mobile veterinary clinic. Well, the address we had on file took me to the wrong house. I didn't realize this till I was halfway up the driveway. Fearing I'd be greeted by a shotgun, I turned around slightly in the yard, got out of there, and parked in a patch of gravel up the street. A few minutes later, a truck blocks me in. An old guy jumps out and explains that I left tire marks in his yard. I apologized, and he said, "Oh, you're gonna be sorry. The sheriffs are on their way." He left and I went on to find the clinic. The law never caught up to me, but that livid geezer did call my company. Those in charge offered to pay for damages and said I should write an apology letter. Once the guy saw my handwriting, I'm sure he realized that I'm neurodivergent and felt bad for yelling at me. Such a dangerous career choice. Before I started, this one guy died on the same Western Kentucky route that I used to do. Fell asleep at the wheel and scattered remains all over the highway. A true dead-end job. Pun intended. I said that lame joke every chance I got. For real though, I didn't want to be a cremator and end up like the angry crypt keeper I used to work with, nor did I ever want to manage one of those disposal facilities, meaning it was time to find something else. The message here, bury your pets. If you don't have a yard, wait till it gets dark and find a plot of land like a mobster. Just don't waste your money on cremation.